Gordon was not feeling well. He had felt a horrible pain in his cylinders and had gone to the works to have it sorted. He had also been suffering a bad case of ash clot in his firebox. The Fat Controller knew that Gordon was important to the Express and promised to find another engine to take over it until Gordon was better. The likes of James and Henry sensed that they would be pulling the Express once more, but to their surprise, the Fat Controller had someone different in mind. The Fat Controller came to the foundry, where Arthur was busy shunting tankers. "Hello, Arthur," he greeted. "Just the engine I'd like to see." "Yes, sir," said Arthur nervously. Arthur was still worried that the Fat Controller was cross about his accident on his first day. "No need to worry, Arthur," said the Fat Controller. "You've proved to be a really useful engine since your first day. In fact, I have a job for you to tackle in the morning." "Yes, sir?" asked Arthur. "Gordon usually pulls the Express, but I'm afraid he's out of commission for a while. Would you like to take the Express tomorrow?" Arthur looked rather pale. I suppose I could, sir," he said. "Splendid," said the Fat Controller. "Be at the big station at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. The station master will give you your instructions." He turned and walked away. Poor Arthur had a sickening feeling in his firebox for the rest of the day as he carried on with his work. When Arthur returned to the sheds that evening, he was still worrying. "Hello, Arthur," whistled Percy. "We just heard that you got the Express. Congratulations." "Thanks," said Arthur grimly, "but I haven't pulled coaches in a long time. I remember last pulling them on my old railway." "You should be in good buffers then," reassured Henry. "The Express is just like any other passenger train, but you have to be more careful with it." "Why?" asked Arthur. "It doesn't stop until it reaches the end of the line," said Percy, "and Gordon always makes sure that his passengers have a smooth and comfortable ride," added Henry. "This is too much to take in," groaned Arthur. "You'll be all right," reassured Percy. But Arthur didn't think he would be, as he braced himself for what the next day would bring. The next morning, Arthur arrived at the big station at exactly 8 o'clock. 4 smart cream and red coaches stood at the platform, and soon Arthur was coupled up. He watched as the passengers started boarding the train. "Come on, Arthur, you can do this," he said to himself. "You've got this. Make Gordon proud. You can do it." It felt like ages for the guard's whistle, but when at last it blew, Arthur set off out of the station. Come along," he said with a nervous tone. We're coming along," sang the coaches. Arthur soon made his way out onto the main line. He felt at first everything was going well. The coaches ran smoothly behind him. James, who had been shunting in the yard for the morning's goods, was amazed with how Arthur looked. Secretly, the red tank engine looked rather majestic gliding along the line, with 4 sleek coaches gliding after him. Before long, Arthur was already halfway across the island. Just as he was passing Rolf's castle, he was starting to enjoy himself. "This is great!" he cried. You're pulling as well, sang the coaches. Arthur's driver was enjoying himself too. "Come on, old boy," he said. "Let's see how fast you can go." Arthur didn't need persuading. He began to pick up speed and was thundering down the line, with the coaches rolling smoothly after him. Many engines stopped and stared in bewilderment as Arthur flashed by. Even Edward was impressed when Arthur thundered through his station and charged up Gordon's Hill without any trouble. Before long, the end of the line came into sight and Arthur came to a gentle stop. Many of the passengers came to thank him and hoped that Arthur could give them a more pleasant ride on the way home. That was wonderful, said Arthur. And for the first time all day, he actually felt a lot better. That evening, Arthur returned to Tidmouth Sheds feeling a lot more good about himself. Thomas was already there, and so was Gordon, who was now out of the works and feeling a lot better. "Well done, Arthur," said Gordon. "Henry dropped in at the works to deliver supplies and told me how well you did. I understand you were a bit nervous." "A little bit, yes," confessed Arthur, "but it was a wonderful experience." "You were splendid, Arthur," said Thomas. "Thank you," said Arthur, blushing a little. "It seems James and Henry may have a bit of competition," added Gordon. "Perhaps you'd like to pull the express again sometimes." "Thank you, Gordon," said Arthur. "It's a lovely offer, but I'd rather stick with my trucks if that's all right with you." "Very well, Arthur," said Gordon, "but I must admit it was truly an honour hearing about you pulling the express so well." Arthur just grinned. Arthur never got to pull the express again after that, but always thought about how well he had done. In fact, just the other day, he found something new to enjoy, the Norrumby fishing village. But that's another story.
One evening, Percy was bringing empty stone trucks from the harbour. He was tired of his quarrel with Thomas and wanted to be friends again. He had had a good day and was feeling extra pleased with himself. He was so busy thinking how he would tell Thomas and Toby about his expert handling of the trucks that he forgot to keep a good lookout. Too late, he saw a broken branch hanging over the line straight in front of him. He groaned. He tried to stop, but his brakes wouldn't hold him. Ouch! He exclaimed a moment later. The branch hit his smoke box, broke away and crashed to the ground. Percy was more startled than hurt, but his front was still sore when he reached the shed. "It's your own fault," said Thomas unsympathetically. "You should have kept a better lookout. I've no patience with you." "Puh," retorted Percy huffily. He forgot about his good resolution and talked to Toby for the rest of the evening. Percy didn't speak to Thomas the next day either. "I say, Toby," he said in the shed that evening. "What's a drip? Do you know?" Toby pondered. "It's when rain comes through a hole in your cab and the fireman hasn't got time to mend it," he decided at last. "That's silly," objected Percy. "I heard a boy on the platform call his friend one this afternoon. I'm sure he couldn't have come through a hole in my cab," he added earnestly. Thomas was tired of being ignored. "That's different," he interrupted loftily. "That boy thought his friend was being a coward, or silly, or a spoilsport." Percy thought about this. "So if," he suggested reflectively, "if you stopped me from doing something nice, would you be a drip, Thomas?" "You're the drip," answered Thomas crossly. "Now go to sleep like a sensible engine and stop talking nonsense." Percy was offended. Instead of going to sleep, he became even more determined to pay Thomas out. Next day, Henry's train was late at the junction. When Thomas set out along the valley, he was trying to make up for lost time. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and something hard hit the bottom of his left-hand water tank. Ouch! Exclaimed Thomas and stopped. As he did so, he felt water splashing cold against his wheels. "One of your side rods is broken," said his driver. "It's swung up and punctured your tank. We'll have to get help." At Farquhar, Percy was shunting. The station master came up. "Leave those trucks, please, Percy," he said. "Thomas has got a hole in his water tank. There's water dripping everywhere, and he can't get home on his own." Percy was still cross with Thomas. "I won't go," he said. "Thomas called me a drip. Let him jolly well stay there and drip himself." "But what about any cargo and the passengers?" reminded Percy's driver. "Do they deserve to stay out till night too?" Percy was sorry at once. "I forgot them," he said. "We must rescue them in case they turn into drips too." He hurried away. Found Thomas near the river. Everyone was glad to see him, and the passengers thanked him for coming. "I'm sorry if I was rude," said Thomas as Percy helped him back to the shed. "That tank of mine turned me into a bigger drip than we expected, didn't it? Can we be friends again, please?" Percy was delighted to agree.
Henry, the green engine, is very fast and very powerful. He likes everything he does to be just right, but sometimes he worries about things so much that it makes him feel ill. Summer was a very busy time for Henry. There were lots of visitors to take all over the island of Sodor. Had to pull the flying kipper from the harbour every morning, loaded with fish. Henry was working so hard that things started to go wrong with him. The fat controller sent Henry to the works for a repair. "You can rest while you're there," he said kindly. But this left the fat controller with another problem. So who was going to do Henry's work? Gordon tried, but he found it exhausting to do Henry's work as well as his own. And Thomas was too small to take on Henry's jobs. James didn't like the idea of working so hard. It might spoil his shiny red paint. The engines were worried. "There's no one big enough or strong enough to take over Henry's work," said Percy. "We've got to think of something," sighed Thomas. The only engine not fussing or fretting was Edward. He could see the other engines were concerned and decided it was time to take charge. "I'll take over from Henry, sir," he said quietly. "It might not be easy, but I'll do my best." "Thank you, Edward," said the fat controller. "I knew I could rely on you to help out." Edward was as good as his word. He did all of Henry's work without fuss. It was hard, but Edward made a good effort. can't let the Fat Controller and the other engines down, he puffed to himself. A few days later, the Fat Controller came to see the engines. Henry is feeling better and ready to come back to work next week. The engines whistled and cheered. You've all done splendidly in his absence, but Edward has done best of all. He may not be the fastest or the strongest, but he is a really useful engine. The others agreed and gave Edward a special blast of their whistles in appreciation.
One night in the shed, Thomas, Percy, and Toby were talking about the old days. We used to be very busy on my old line, Toby remembered. During the fruit season, the men would have to work hard loading the vans. They were heavy to pull, those fruit vans, but Driver and I never let anyone down. Toby paused, then chuckled. Except once when we nearly did, he added. Tell us, Toby, urged Percy. Toby paused again, remembering. Near the end of the strawberry season, he began. All the farmers wanted to move their fruit before it was too late. They mustn't be delayed, or they go bad, and then they're no use in the shops. Anyway, the men loaded the vans, and then Driver decided we should try and take them all in one train. It was a bit of a risk, because I wouldn't be able to get another drink of water before we reached home. My water tanks aren't very big, as you know, and a heavy load like that uses a lot of steam. It certainly does, agreed Thomas and Percy, remembering the time they, with Duck's help, had pulled Gordon's Express. Well, Toby went on, Fireman filled my tanks as full as he could, and we set off. Oh my, it was hard work. Fireman was getting worried quite soon after we had started. Then we came to a bridge across a canal which had a steep hill up to it. I was glad when we were safely over that. At last, we came to a small station halfway along the line. Driver stopped me. It's no use, Toby, he told me. You've got enough water to get home on your own, but not pulling this train. Why don't we go and get some water, and then come back for the train, I suggested. Driver agreed, so we uncoupled the freight cars and set off. My tanks were nearly empty by the time we got home, but we made it, and I had a lovely long drink. My word, I was thirsty. Then we came back and safely brought the strawberries in. Our controller was pleased and came along later to thank us for not letting the tramway down. That was kind of him, Toby added with a smile. It's nice to feel useful, isn't it? Thomas and Percy could only agree.
Rosie is a pink tank engine that is new to the island of Sodor. Thomas and Rosie got along, and he'd help show her around the yard. But whenever Thomas is unavailable, Edward comes to help her. Edward always found her to be quite impressive with shunting, but the two would often disagree on certain topics. Regardless, the two are still good friends. One day, Rosie was shunting trucks near Mafford Station when she saw Gordon at the platform, with his coaches in tow. He was waiting for the passengers to board as he sizzled proudly. Rosie watched in awe as the guard eventually blew his whistle, and Gordon set off. As Gordon rolled out of the station, the coaches shined proudly under the bright sun. Rosie was mesmerized. Wow! I would love to pull those coaches. Edward pulled alongside, chuckling. That's known as the Express, explained Edward. It's a train that goes across the island all the way to Victorstown. Rosie was even more ecstatic. You think I could pull those coaches sometime, Edward? She asked hopefully. Pah! Snorted James. Little tank engines can't pull the Express by themselves. It requires a strong engine like me. Quite enough out of you, James, replied Edward, before looking back to Rosie. But he is right. It is a heavy train and must stay on time. I'm sorry, Rosie, but it just isn't possible. Rosie was disappointed, but persistent. But she didn't argue. She just went back to shunting. There has to be a way. I'm sure I could do it. I'm sure I will do it. He can't always be right. Rosie had no idea how, but the chance would come sooner than expected. A big storm had approached the island that night, and Rosie had to sleep in a nearby shed with Thomas. By morning, Thomas had already gone to his branch line, and Rosie arrived at Knapford Station, only to not find Edward there. Even more so, the passengers were waiting impatiently at the platforms. It was then Sir Topham Hatt appeared. Due to the storm last night, he explained worriedly, a pole had fallen and disabled the turntable at Tidmouth, leaving my good engine stranded there. We'll be mighty late when an engine can come here, but I'd like you to assemble the coaches so they can at least be seated. Rosie then saw her chance. Sir, we can't be too late, she exclaimed. It doesn't look like too many passengers. Perhaps I could take them. Sir Topham Hatt was about to reject her offer, but then looked back to the passengers. Farewell, Rosie. You may pull the express, but be cautious and be patient. Rosie was excited. She shunted the express together and coupled up, waiting as the passengers boarded. The guard then blew his whistle. All right, Rosie, said her driver. Steady now. She tried moving, but soon found it harder as her wheels began to slip. But with enough effort, she began moving out of the station. She was nowhere near as fast, but she struggled on, her driver and fireman being hard at work to produce enough steam. Rosie found it very hard, but struggled on. "I can do it! I will do it!" she panted. She then arrived at Edward's station, feeling worn out as she went to refill herself once more. The station master then appeared. "Gordon's Hill is up ahead. You won't be able to make it without a backer for the rest of the trip." Rosie was sad. She knew he was right. The backer soon arrived. It was Edward. "Got here as soon as I can," exclaimed Edward. "They managed to fix the turntable." Rosie looked to Edward, still very much saddened. "I'm sorry, Edward. You are right. I guess I am just a silly engine." But Edward surprised her. "Silly?" he questioned. "You made it this far all by yourself. Comes to show that even an old engine like me can't always be right. I'm proud of you. You are a useful engine." Rosie smiled happily. She felt much better. Rosie once again set off with the express, with Edward behind her to back her. They reached Gordon's Hill as Edward called out, "Show them what two engines could do with determination!" The hill was a hard, steep climb. But they eventually made it to the top. Edward stayed behind, and the two of them helped make up for lost time. They eventually reached their final stop at Vicarstown, and the passengers cheered for their hard work. The two engines were getting ready for the return trip when Sir Topham Hatt approached them. "Excellent job, you two. You both have worked very hard today, and you both shall receive a brand new coat of paint and a long rest." He then walked away, with Rosie looking to Edward. Who knew being wrong could be so rewarding? Edward couldn't help but laugh.
The harbor on Edward's branch line was bustling with activity. Ships arrived night and day to load and unload cargo. This meant more and more trucks were needed, and the sidings were soon crowded. Poor Edward found it difficult to stay organized. Any spare time he had was spent trying to tidy the trucks. Unfortunately, his priority was getting his own trains ready, so little progress was made. Bill and Ben tried to help when they brought their loads of clay. However, they often ended up bickering about what truck should go where, which only made things worse. You can't keep going on like this, remarked Boko, as a weary Edward huffed into the junction. I think it's time we spoke to the Fat Controller about getting help.
The other engines are much too busy with their own work, Edward replied. I'll manage. Somehow.
Boko was unconvinced, but said no more. Later, Boko brought passengers to Thomas's junction. He was still thinking about Edward when his thoughts were interrupted by a cheerful ding-a-ling-a-ling.
You look worried, Boko, observed Toby. What's wrong?
Boko quickly explained about Edward and the harbor.
I know the feeling, sympathized Toby. Back in my harbor days, you barely got a chance to rest your wheels. I miss it sometimes, though it's far from light work.
So it seems, muttered Boko.
I wouldn't worry, smiled Toby. Edward has one thing every harbor engine needs: experience. I'm sure those trucks will be sorted by the time you next see him.
But they weren't. Edward was busy elsewhere and hadn't been back to the harbor since the morning. Boko took his goods down the line. But when he arrived at the harbor, he was shocked. Trucks were everywhere. They giggled and chattered noisily. Boko frowned and moved forward to find Bill and Ben, arguing furiously.
You let a truck tell you where to put it? You know they're untrustworthy, Bill squawked. Seemed more trustworthy than your instinct. You blocked an entire siding, retorted Ben.
Enough, both of you! The twins jumped, not having noticed Boko arrive. What on earth is going on here? He demanded.
We just wanted to help Edward, cried Bill.
By sitting around bickering? Growled Boko.
It's not our fault, Ben harumphed. We've never dealt with this many trucks at the clay pits. Perhaps if Edward had passed on some of that experience of his, we...
Experience! Cried Boko. That's it! The twins stared at each other, then smiled. Whatever Boko's idea was, it was good enough for them. That evening, Edward was bringing his last passenger train to the harbor. He was glad the day's work was done, and was eager to organize the yard. As he pulled into the harbor, he was quite surprised. The trucks were all tidily arranged. Sidings were clear, ships were hooting their horns in delight, and the workmen were in much better spirits. How? He began, when a familiar sight came into view.
Evening, Edward, smiled Toby. I don't suppose you mind a little help from an old harbor engine, do you?
Not at all, beamed Edward.
But how? Boko spoke with the Fat Controller, explained Toby. The others are handling my branch line trains, while I look after your harbor for a few days.
I must say, it's a relief to see you. I've been run ragged trying to keep everything in order.
You leave this lot to me, Toby said, eyeing the trucks. I'll see to it that your harbor is well looked after.
Toby was as good as his word. Edward and Boko were able to focus on their regular duties. Toby had their trains ready in good time and kept all the ships on schedule leaving the harbor. He even found time to teach Bill and Ben a few tricks. At last, the harbor grew quieter, and the workload was more manageable. All the engines came to see Toby off. "The number 7 suits you," grinned Boko. "We're certainly lucky to have had your help." "It's been my pleasure," Toby smiled. "It put me in mind of the old days. Although," he chuckled, "it reminded me I'm not as young as I once was. I'm looking forward to a quiet run with Henrietta." At that moment, the signal dropped, and Toby's path was clear. "Goodbye, Toby," cheered Edward. "You're welcome on our branch line anytime." To a chorus of whistles and horns, Toby set off for home.
Henry the Green Engine had steaming troubles. Some days he woke up raring to go. Others, he felt utterly feeble. His crew tried hard to make him better, but to no avail. Henry usually pulled the first train. Each morning, Thomas brought his coaches to the platform and pushed from behind to help Henry start. He always whistled, "Good luck!" and Henry would whistle, "Thank you!" no matter how little steam he had. This made Thomas happy, but Henry's troubles concerned him. "He can't help feeling unwell. The Fat Controller must know that," he confided to Edward. "You don't think he'd replace Henry, do you?" "The Fat Controller always gives engines a fair chance," smiled Edward. "And Henry's a good sort." "Even so," he sighed, "something must be done." Thomas gulped. Edward's remark didn't feel very reassuring. Later, Thomas was shunting when he saw Sir Topham Hatt talking to the station master. He couldn't quite hear the discussion, as Gordon came clanking in with the express. But he did hear Henry and making arrangements. "Oh dear, Henry is being replaced," he thought. "Little Thomas," beckoned Gordon. "My coaches need shunting, thank you very much." As Thomas coupled to the train, a thought struck him. "Perhaps I could—" "Yes, it's perfect," he beamed. The next morning, he brought Henry's coaches to the platform as usual. Henry soon arrived, and the passengers began to board. Thomas could hear Henry wheezing at the head of the train. "Don't worry, Henry," he smiled. "You'll be all right now." The guard's whistle blew, and Henry started off. Thomas followed smoothly at first, but suddenly jerked forward. Thrown off balance, his crew fell from the cab. By the time they'd picked themselves up, Thomas was steaming away. "What do you think you're doing, you silly engine?" called the driver. Thomas knew exactly what he was doing. He'd remembered Gordon's trick of leaving before he could be uncoupled. This time, he wanted to follow on. "I'm helping Henry! I'm helping Henry!" he smirked. Cheeky engine, fussed the coaches. Henry was amazed how easy it felt to pull his train. "That's good, come along! That's good, come along!" he sang. wouldn't be good for long. They approached the first station, and Henry slowed down. But Thomas didn't. He was so pleased with his plan that he wasn't paying attention. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" shrieked the coaches. Without his driver, Thomas couldn't stop. Henry braked with all his might. The train slowed to a crawl, but Thomas's wheels kept spinning. "Ooh!" he winced, shutting his eyes. Suddenly, he felt his handbrake move, and his steam was shut off. He opened his eyes. They'd stopped at the platform, with angry passengers swarming around a flustered Henry. "Phew!" sighed Thomas. His relief was short-lived, for stepping out of his cab was Sir Topham Hatt.
"I appreciate you helping the train start, but this habit of gallivanting after them must stop, Thomas. You've no business running off down the main line, especially without your driver."
"I'm sorry, sir," sighed Thomas, "but I didn't want you to send Henry away." He explained what he'd overheard.
"I'm afraid you've let yourself get carried away," chuckled Sir Topham Hatt. "I'm not sending Henry away. I'm rearranging his timetable. If Edward takes the first train, Henry will have more time to build up steam, which should help him greatly."
Thomas beamed. He'd never been so relieved to be wrong.
"Now, back to the yard with you. I have disgruntled passengers to pacify," finished Sir Topham Hatt.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir," blushed Thomas, and he scampered away. That night, Henry backed down beside Thomas in the shed. "It was most kind of you to help me. Now that I have more time to build steam, maybe all my trains will be that easy to pull, even without you at the back," he chuckled. Thomas smiled, thankful that Henry wasn't going anywhere.
Always gets up early in the morning to pull a very special train. This train is known as the Flying Kipper. The Flying Kipper is filled with fish that gets delivered from Tidmouth to the mainland. Whenever Henry is away to not pull the kipper, James is the one to take it. However, Henry and James had both been sent away for repairs, leaving Sir Topham Hatt in quite the predicament. "The Flying Kipper is without an engine," he told the engines one night at the sheds. "I need someone to take the position. May I get any volunteers?" Thomas and Percy, mischievous in their ways, spoke up. "Perhaps you should get Gordon to do it," peeped Thomas. "He is a fast and strong engine like Henry," added Percy. Gordon scoffed. "Pah! What rubbish! An express engine like myself can't go around smelling like a fish engine." Sir Topham Hatt laughed. "Y'all fair point. Y'all fair point. You shall be taken off express duties as Murdoch will be taking over. You'll be the kipper engine till further notice." Gordon was speechless. Early next morning, Gordon was at the harbor in a siding, waiting while Percy shunted his train. Gordon grumbled to himself as the smell of fish filled the air. Rotten fish, he muttered. It stinks of indignity. Most unbecoming of an important engine like myself. I'm sad to say that Gordon was so sleepy from being up so early that he had fallen asleep. Percy had woken him up after shunting the train. Gordon was alarmed. He had to couple up to the train to set off in time. Once he did, he set off after the guard's whistle blew. Gordon was running smoothly through the night. The night was peaceful, and the smell of fish was left behind in the wind. This is a nice change. This is a nice change indeed, Gordon boasted as he thundered down the line. But that soon changed as he went on. He began to go slower and slower, puff by puff, until he came to an absolute standstill. What on earth has happened to me? Asked Gordon. Ow, you silly engine, called out his driver. You were so busy dozing off and grumbling that you forgot to take on coal. Now we're stranded. And they were. The smell of fish came back to fill the air around Gordon, making him feel ill. Percy was called in to bring a truck full of coal, and the driver and fireman made sure to fill Gordon up nicely before they set off again. Luckily, they had made up for lost time, arriving at each station with the deliveries of fish. Gordon later trundled back to the sheds, feeling embarrassed. Oh, I am a silly engine indeed, he said to himself as he puffed slowly home. Gordon had learned a valuable lesson. Not being prepared can stink later on down the line.